Isaac Herzog, thanks very much for joining us. So I want to talk to you about what I imagine is in focus at the Jewish Agency, the attack in Pittsburgh. First of all, your reaction to what the ADL is calling the worst attack on Jews in U.S. history.
It is the worst attack on Jews in the United States history. And in fact, it's a major watershed because Jews were going to pray to the Lord Almighty in the synagogue in Pittsburgh. They were wearing their prayer shawls, the talitot. They were about to open the ark to take out the Torah. There was about to be a brit milah, a circumcision of another Jewish boy. And a vile terrorist entered in shouting death to the Jews and shot and killed innocent people just because they're Jews. It's horrific. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting, and it requires a very firm action. And moreover, it will also definitely, in my mind, have influence on the daily life of Jewish communities around the United States.
You mentioned firm action. President Trump, in the hours after the attack, suggested that an armed guard would have changed the scenario, that he would have prevented this from happening. What's your take on that approach, that more security is the answer?
Well, first of all, it's a two-tier approach. One is to fight xenophobia, hate, anti-Semitism, white supremacists of all kinds. And secondly, to understand that this is a major challenge of modern humanity. In fact, we see it all over the world. And just about a few weeks ago, there were some anti-Semitic attacks on Jews on a synagogue, I think in Virginia. I have data showing that on the web and on Twitter, there's growing amount of hate against Jews in the United States. This has to be taken care of with no mercy. And very strong adjudication and law enforcement. But moreover, yes, it will also require more security in synagogues, in schools, and in JCCs. And I know that each and every one of those organizations are well managed, but they will probably seek more security and beefing up of the situation.
So let's talk a little bit bigger picture, your role as head of the Jewish Agency. Just last week, you described the gap between diaspora Jews and Israel and Israeli Jews as an existential threat. Obviously, there are several factors that contribute to that, but what for you is the biggest? What is the #1 problem creating that gap?
First and foremost, a major lack of understanding between the two communities. One being much more liberal in the North America, a majority of which are conservative and reform, different approach to life in terms of beliefs and the involvement of the state in your religious lives. Whilst in Israel, a community which is different priorities, especially security, things that are the images that you get from both sides are not reflective of what there is, which is a much larger common denominator, much deeper theological discourse. And 6 million people here and 6 million people there must sit down and talk to each other like family.
Some, over the last couple of years, say the Trump administration is actually contributing to that gap, in that this administration clearly has a very close relationship with the Netanyahu government, and support for his government, and in many cases for the Trump administration amidst American Jews, is not particularly high. Do you see that as a factor in this gap?
What I'm saying is that this political discourse should not be part of the gap. Namely, I tell everybody on both sides of the ocean, go way beyond. Israel and its diaspora are way beyond who's leading the United States and who's leading Israel. And it cannot be transformed that because of anger against Trump, Israel will be vilified in the Jewish community, whilst misunderstanding the fact that every Israeli leader would want to work closely with the President of the United States because of security. And on the other hand, same goes on Netanyahu. And I believe these are two political people, and there are election processes, and we can argue with them on whatever counts. We love them, we can hate them, whatever. It has nothing to do with the need of the Jewish people, strategic need, to have a dialogue amidst differences. to honor the differences and respect and love each other. That's a totally different ballgame. And I tell everybody, don't transform politics into this discourse in the family.
Well, so I do want to ask you about a political element in terms of taking action. The Israeli Prime Minister tried to block your nomination to lead the Jewish agency. You two have obviously sparred during your time as head of the opposition. Have you found you are able to work together, that you are getting results in trying to address the problems you're talking about?
Absolutely. We talk a lot. We work with the Prime Minister's office closely. I met the Prime Minister a couple of times since then. I think it's all behind us. I also am trying to inject a spirit of dialogue, but also dealing with what counts for the Jewish people. For example, I passed a resolution unanimously at the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency, reaffirming our commitment to the values that are the basis for Israel's Declaration of Independence. That's important because we want to unite the Jewish people around a set of values. I brought the leader, the spiritual leader of the Druze community, to speak at the Board of Governors. That is because I believe that we have to attend to all people of Israel. So whilst I respect the fact that there are differences, and there must be and there will be, but we have to find a common denominator. And my line is unity amidst differences.
All right, a line relevant on many fronts in 2018. Isaac Herzog.